Good evening. Why I waited 22 years for an Oscar. There is something poetic about waiting, about struggle, about losing over and over again, and still showing up, not because the world owes you recognition, but because the work, the story, the truth, that's what you're chasing, not the statue. The wait wasn't a punishment, it was a lesson, a series of roles that taught me more about humanity, pain, obsession, resilience, and the thin line between survival and surrender. And with every film, there was a moment, one single moment, where it felt like magic. That moment is what I kept coming back for, not the awards. There's a difference between wanting something and being ready for it. Sometimes the world holds it back until you're seasoned enough, emotionally, spiritually, and creatively, to understand what it really means, what it actually costs. I didn't wait 22 years for a trophy. I waited for the journey to shape me into the kind of artist who could hold that moment with grace and with perspective, who knew that the greatest reward wasn't gold, it was growth. Thank you. The wait for something deeply meaningful, especially in the world of art, is rarely without purpose. When someone spends over 2 decades pursuing excellence without receiving the ultimate validation, it's natural to question the fairness of it. But in truth, the delay can often be the very thing that gives the achievement its weight. That long stretch of time, filled with near misses, critical acclaim without reward, and public expectation, isn't just a void. It's a crucible. It's where growth happens. It's where a performer becomes an artist. When one isn't handed recognition early on, it forces a reevaluation of why they're doing what they do in the first place. Is it for applause, or is it for something deeper, something more lasting? Each role taken during those 22 years became more than just a performance. They were tests of discipline, of emotional endurance, of personal identity. With every character, there was an opportunity to step further into discomfort, to shed a little more ego, and to embrace complexity without the safety net of guaranteed praise. That process changes a person. It deepens the work. And in the absence of external rewards, the motivation shifts in. The goal becomes about serving the story, honoring the character, and pushing the limits of emotional honesty. In that way, the wait becomes a gift. It strips away vanity. It builds humility. It transforms ambition into patience and teaches that mastery isn't born from recognition. It's forged in repetition, in failure, in risk. There's a clarity that comes when you've been in the game long enough to see that awards don't define legacy, the work does. And in those quiet years between nominations, when the cameras are off and the lights have dimmed, that's when the real work is happening. That's when an actor learns to be fully present in the role, not because someone is watching, but because it's the only honest way to do the job. There's also a strange kind of freedom in being overlooked. It allows experimentation. It gives space to take bold creative risks without the burden of maintaining a reputation. That freedom is fertile ground for real evolution, because when you're not chasing approval, you start chasing truth. And audiences can feel that. They know when the performance is coming from a place of hunger, not for trophies, but for authenticity. So no, the wait wasn't wasted time. It was a necessary path, one filled with lessons that no shortcut could teach. It built the foundation that made eventual recognition feel earned, not just by one performance, but by a body of work. The patience demanded by the wait taught that art isn't a race, it's a lifetime commitment. And when the moment finally came, it wasn't just a victory, it was a culmination of everything learned in the silence between the applause. Acting has never been about the accolades. Not really. At its core, it's about the work. The raw, messy, unpredictable craft of stepping into someone else's life and telling their truth. That's the reason for showing up. Day after day, script after script. It's not the red carpets or headlines. It's not even the standing ovations. It's that rare, electric feeling when a scene comes alive, when something real breaks through the performance and you feel it, not as an actor, but as a human being connecting with something bigger than yourself. Each role taken wasn't chosen for the potential it had to win awards. It was chosen for the challenge, the depth, the emotional terrain it asked you to explore. Whether it was playing a dream thief, a frontiersman fighting for survival, or a man on the verge of madness, it was never about the glamour of the character. It was about the transformation required, the vulnerability, the danger, the possibility of failure. That's what drew the line between the safe choice and the right one. And again, the choice was made to serve the story first. The craft demands more than talent. It demands surrender to a character's flaws, to their darkness, to their chaos. It requires long nights, lost weight, buried emotions, and the willingness to be uncomfortable. Sometimes it means disappearing for months into a world that isn't yours, just to capture a few minutes of truth on screen. It's a process that doesn't guarantee reward. It just guarantees the chance to get it right. And that's enough. That's what keeps you going. There's a quiet kind of fulfillment that comes from knowing you gave everything to a role, whether anyone noticed or not. That internal satisfaction, that sense that you honored the character and the vision, is more grounding than any statue ever could be, because awards can be debated. The quality of your process can't. It's sacred. It's yours. When the focus stays on the craft, everything else, praise, recognition, success, becomes a byproduct, not the goal. And that keeps the work honest. It prevents compromise. It encourages growth. Every performance becomes a new opportunity to learn, to dig deeper, to stretch further, and to find something more real than you did last time. There's no ceiling, only the next challenge. And when the focus is rooted in craft, not clout, the result is work that resonates beyond trends, beyond hype, something lasting. So the pursuit was never for the spotlight. It was always for the story, always for the chance to take the audience somewhere unexpected, to make them feel something they didn't see coming. That's the craft, that's the calling, and that, above all else, is what makes the journey worth it, even if no award ever comes. Because when the work is honest, it already is the reward. In a world driven by applause, it's easy to mistake recognition for purpose. But when the work becomes centered around external validation, something vital gets lost. The authenticity, the fire, the reason it all began. The truth is, recognition isn't the goal. It never was. It's a fleeting thing, something you can't control. You can pour your heart into a performance, sacrifice, bleed for a role, and still be overlooked. So if the reward is the only reason you're doing it, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. But if the reward is simply a bonus, not the purpose, then the work becomes sustainable, meaningful. Every project offered a choice: chase the spotlight or chase the story. And every time the story won. Because the most honest performances come from a place untouched by ego, from being fully present in the role, committed to truth, not to approval. That commitment doesn't guarantee trophies, but it guarantees impact. Audiences can feel when something is done with integrity. They might not always know why a performance moves them, but they can sense when it's real. That's the kind of work that lasts. That's the kind of work that echoes. Recognition can be a beautiful moment, but it's just that, a moment. Fleeting, temporary. What lasts is the body of work, the decisions made in silence, away from the lights, the risks taken when nobody's watching, the roles chosen not because they were award bait, but because they were hard, because they scared you, because they forced you to evolve. Those are the choices that shape a career. Those are the performances that build legacy. There's also a kind of freedom that comes when recognition isn't the aim. It allows for risk, for failure, for growth. It opens the door to roles that don't fit the mold, that don't follow the formula. And in those roles, you find the most surprising truths. You dig deeper, you explore characters no one else wanted to touch, and somehow, in doing so, you find yourself. Recognition in that context becomes a side effect of integrity, not the motivation. Letting go of the need to be seen allows you to actually be seen for who you are, not who you're trying to impress. The work becomes more grounded more personal, and ironically more powerful, because when you stop chasing the crowd begins to follow. They follow authenticity, they follow passion, they follow the work. So the aim was never to collect statues. It was to build something meaningful, something worth revisiting, something that could speak to people long after the credits rolled. Because awards can shine for a night, but the work, if done with honesty, can shine for a lifetime. And that kind of recognition, the quiet kind, the lasting kind, that's the one worth waiting for. That's the one that matters. There's a rhythm to life, and sometimes it doesn't move at the pace you want. You can give everything to your craft, years of preparation, full emotional surrender, discipline that borders on obsession, and still, the moment you hope for doesn't arrive. It's frustrating, it's humbling, but in time it becomes clear. Just because you want something doesn't mean you're ready for it. Recognition, especially the kind that defines a career, doesn't just test talent, it tests maturity, resilience, and perspective. And sometimes the world holds it back until you've earned more than just skill, you've earned understanding. Timing isn't just about when the right role comes along or when the right film hits. It's also about when you, as a person and as an artist, have evolved enough to carry what that recognition truly means. Fame can arrive quickly, but the weight of true recognition, of being called one of the greats, demands a depth that can only be built with time, with mistakes, with pain. It asks you to become more than a performer. It asks you to become a vessel for stories that are bigger than you. There's a difference between wanting an award and being ready for the responsibility that comes with it. Recognition puts a spotlight on everything, your choices, your words, your future. It elevates the expectations. If that comes too early, it can distort your purpose. But when it comes after years of effort, when it comes after you've seen what it means to fail, to be overlooked, to grow anyway, that's when it means something. That's when you know how to carry it. That wait, those years between nominations were never empty. They were preparation. They were sharpening tools, gaining life experience, developing emotional range, and learning how to listen more deeply. Each role added a new layer, not just to the craft, but to the person behind it. And when you finally stand on that stage, not as someone chasing validation, but as someone who has walked the long road, you feel the difference. The moment doesn't define you, you define the moment. There's also wisdom in accepting that some things are outside your control. You can't force timing. You can't predict when the stars will align. All you can do is keep showing up, keep doing the work, and trust that when it's meant to happen, it will, and when it does, it won't just be a win. It will be a reflection of everything you endured to get there. It will be earned. So maybe the wait wasn't a delay, it was a lesson, a reminder that real growth takes time, that becoming the kind of artist who can truly hold recognition with grace and humility takes years. And when the timing is right, it won't just be the right role or the right year, it will be the right version of you, ready not just to receive the moment, but to honor it. When everything is stripped away, awards, fame, even the applause, what remains is character. Not the character in the script, but the one inside, the part of you that holds the silence between roles, the rejection between jobs, and the dignity when the world looks the other way. In the end, it's not about how loud the celebration is, it's about how steady you remain when there's nothing to celebrate. That's grace. And grace is what gives meaning to success when it finally arrives. There's a quiet kind of strength in continuing to show up without guarantees, in giving your all to every performance, knowing full well it might go unnoticed. That's not weakness, that's conviction, that's belief in something bigger than your ego. Because the goal isn't just to be great, it's to be true. True to the story, true to the craft, and most of all, true to yourself. That kind of integrity doesn't come from winning. It comes from enduring, from holding your ground through the years when recognition doesn't show up, and still refusing to lower your standards. Glory is tempting, it's bright, it's loud, it feels good in the moment, but grace is different. Grace is the way you carry yourself in the face of disappointment. It's how you treat others even when you're hurting. It's how you protect the love you have for the work, even when the world doesn't reflect it back. And that kind of grace is what sustains you, because there will always be someone who gets the role you wanted, someone who gets the praise first. That's part of the path. But grace keeps your feet on the ground and your heart in the right place. The journey isn't about being better than anyone else. It's about being better than you were. Growing quietly, choosing dignity over bitterness. Allowing the long road to humble you instead of harden you. And when the moment of recognition finally comes, if it comes, you're ready for it. Not just professionally, but emotionally. You're not seeking validation from it. You're bringing meaning to it because you know who you are without it. There's something powerful about standing in front of the world, not as someone desperate to be seen, but as someone who has already done the internal work, who has already made peace with the silence, with the waiting, with the long nights of wondering if any of it matters. When you finally reach that place, you don't need the world to cheer for you. You just need to keep doing the work the right way, the honest way. And if glory does knock on your door, you open it not to prove anything, but to share everything you've learned, to stand with grace, not pride, because grace endures long after the spotlight fades. It's what leaves a legacy that speaks louder than any acceptance speech ever could. So in the end, it was never about the moment I held the award in my hands. It was about every moment I didn't and still chose to rise. Because real greatness isn't measured by recognition. It's measured by the grace to keep going without it.